My name is Eleanor Grace Whitmore, but most people just called me Ellie. I was born in a quiet town in England where the green fields stretched for miles and the river sang a soft lullaby every morning. I grew up believing in fairy tales, that love always wins, that good people are rewarded, and that everyone's happily ever after is real. I was young and hopeful, and I thought I understood love better than most. When I was 18, I met Lucas Bennett. He was charming in a way that made your heart skip a beat, the kind of smile that felt like sunshine after an endless rain. Lucas had dark hair that curled at the edges, warm brown eyes that seemed to look right through you, and a voice like velvet. I fell for him the moment he laughed at my terrible joke about a broken umbrella on a rainy day. I thought it was fate. We spent every day together. We walked down narrow cobblestone streets, held hands under blooming cherry blossoms, and whispered secrets into the night. I told him everything, my dreams of becoming a writer, my fear of thunderstorms, and the time I locked myself out of the house wearing only slippers. Lucas listened like my words were treasures, and I believed he meant every one of them. One evening, just as the sun dipped into the horizon, Lucas asked me to sit with him beside the riverbank. He looked nervous, twisting the silver ring in his pocket in and out of his fingers. "Ellie," he said softly, "I want to spend forever with you." I felt my heart dance. He opened his palm and there it was, a ring, simple but elegant, shimmering like moonlight. "Yes," I whispered before I even realized it. "Yes," I said again, with tears of joy in my eyes. We were engaged that night, and everything felt like a storybook. When I told my parents, my mother cried happy tears and my father hugged me tightly. Friends congratulated us, and everyone said I was lucky to have found such a man. And I believed them. I believed I was the luckiest girl in the world. But love, I would later learn, isn't always what it appears to be. The early days of marriage. We married a year later in a garden ceremony filled with white roses and summer sunshine. I wore a flowing gown that felt like a dream, and Lucas stood at the altar with a smile that could have lit up the darkest night. Everyone said it was the perfect wedding, and for a short while, it was. I moved into Lucas's apartment on Ashfield Lane. It was spacious, with tall windows that let in light and a small balcony overlooking a garden courtyard. I spent morning after morning sipping tea by that balcony while writing in my journal. Thoughts about our future, wishes for children, and stories I dreamed of writing someday. But then the subtle cracks began. Lucas started working longer hours. He kissed me goodbye in the mornings, saying he had important meetings, and sometimes he wouldn't come home until after midnight. I thought it was dedication, that he was building our future. I waited for him with dinner on the table and fresh tea steaming in mugs. I told myself, this is what love requires. Patience. But patience became loneliness. The first doubt. One night, when Lucas called to say he would be late again, I felt a sharp sting in my heart I had never felt before. I stood by the window, watching street lamps blink awake as dusk turned to night. I imagined Lucas in a boardroom, making deals and talking about spreadsheets and profits, but a strange voice in my head whispered something I didn't want to hear. Is he really where he says he is? I shoved the thought away. I didn't want to be foolish. I didn't want to be that wife who doubted her husband. He loved me, right? He told me so. He said I was his world. Still, the doubt crept in. The hidden messages. A week later, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. I was making his coffee one morning when his phone buzzed on the counter. It lit up with a message from a name I didn't recognize. Marina. Curious, I picked up the phone to silence it, and the message preview made my breath catch. Can't wait to see you tonight. My hand shook. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I didn't want to doubt him, but my heart was pounding so loud it felt like thunder in my chest. I swiped to open the message, and then another and another. Pictures, plans, laughter. It was clear Lucas was meeting someone else. I dropped the phone. My tea splashed over the counter. My world tilted. I told myself to breathe. I told myself it must be a mistake. Maybe Marina was a cousin. Maybe a friend planning a surprise. I needed proof. Real proof. So I followed him that night. The worst night of my life. I waited in my car near an upscale cafe, the kind with fairy lights and soft music that made couples hold hands. Lucas walked in, and beside him was the woman from the messages, her hair blonde as sunrise, her dress shimmering in the streetlights, her laughter easy and warm. They didn't just sit together, they kissed. I watched, frozen, as my perfect world shattered into 1,000 sharp pieces. I drove home in silence, tears blurring the road ahead. When I stepped inside, Lucas was already there, as if he could sense I knew. He didn't apologize. He didn't hide it. He said, "You shouldn't have followed me." That pain was unlike anything I'd ever felt. The foolish choice. I didn't leave him. I told myself it was love. I told myself people make mistakes. I told myself forgiveness was noble. I told myself 1,000 things that made sense only to a heart that refused to see the truth. Lucas apologized, not sincerely, but with a practiced guilt that sounded rehearsed. He said it meant nothing. He said it was a moment. He said he still loved me. I believed him. I let him convince me that staying was brave, that choosing love over pain was noble. I believed that I could change him. I believed that love could fix betrayal. But love doesn't fix those who don't want to be fixed. The slow, unraveling months passed. Lucas didn't hide his interactions with Marina. He stopped hiding them altogether. He would answer her calls in front of me, joke with her over texts with a smile that used to be mine. Meanwhile, I stayed silent, polite, and as composed as I could be. Friends noticed. They asked if I was okay. They said I deserved better. But I couldn't leave. I couldn't. Every time I thought of leaving, I remembered the way Lucas proposed, the dreams we whispered beside the riverbank, the promises he swore under the summer sky. I clung to those memories like lifelines, even as reality strangled me. I became a ghost of myself, a woman who laughed less, cried more, and wrote stories that sounded more like confessions than fiction. The day I realized one evening, as Lucas got ready for dinner with Marina, I didn't say anything. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just watched him leave me again, not physically, but emotionally. And then something inside me cracked, not in pain, not in sorrow, but in clarity. I closed the door behind him and walked to my desk. I opened my journal, the one where I used to write about sunshine and dreams, and I wrote, "I deserved love that chooses me, not ignores me." It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It was true. The new beginning. I didn't call him. I didn't beg. I didn't wait. I walked out. I moved into a small apartment near the river. I wrote stories again, not about love that blinds, but about love that heals. I wrote about forgiveness, self-worth, strength, and the bravery it took to choose myself. I met new people. I laughed again. I learned that happiness wasn't a distant dream. It was a choice. And one day, standing by that same river where Lucas once proposed, I realized that love wasn't foolish. My choice to stay in pain was. I learned that the heart can be broken and still be brave, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away. Reflection: I'm not bitter, I'm not angry, I'm wiser. I hold no regret, only lessons. Love doesn't always stay, but you always remain. And that's the greatest story of all.